determined in France on behalf of the Africans who were freed here. I don't know what France thinks about it. We should have said, thank you very much to take our money and use it there and have the soldiers. This is what has led to the recent coups. So it's a wrong statement. I don't agree with it because it has not helped us. The thing that says we are helping you or whatever, not helping us, does not agree that we are free, we do what we want. People who have just conducted coup d'etats recently, because they say we can't have our money in France. We can't have the soldiers from France here when we have got our own. That in itself tells you the man is just talking. He does not know how black people have suffered from white people, particularly the French. So I don't even want to debate that one because it would take me to debate things that are too far. I'm busy dealing with the situation here, with the British in particular.
But I just want to stay a little bit with regards to France. Chad, I'm sure you agree with the statement that they've said, claiming that Macron is insulting the intelligence of African countries by insinuating that they are ungrateful. I'm sure you agree with that statement.
Of course, yes. I'm agreeing. I did not want to get into the details. I just wanted to say that fellow is wrong. We have suffered since they colonized us up to this day. That's what I was saying. In other words, I was answering the question that it is part of what whites think about us.
I'm sure you also agree with Senegal and Ivory Coast's decision to withdraw the troops, French troops in their regions. I'm
Absolutely,
sure you do.
I agree totally. In fact, it is too late. They should have done a long time ago because it is wrong. Why are the forces of a French country are stationed in Africa, in the country of somebody else? Why? It's because they think they are our fathers. And I think that time has come. We cannot longer wait for that.
So you're saying Africa should be seen as a powerful continent that can call the shots for themselves?
It is a powerful continent, only disturbed by the colonizers who are still colonizing us in a modern way. They think we cannot see.
Recently, the U.S. Secretary of State was lambasted for the U.S.'s stance when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war, or genocide, if you may. What do you think of South Africa coming forward and defending the people of Palestine and how it has gone about to deal with that by even going as far as filing a genocide case?
No, I think there is an old problem we have, that those who were oppressed many years ago are still oppressed. Those who feel they are very powerful, they are still using their power. For an example, the whole world looked at a country in the Middle East where buildings were bombed, small kids were killed, and the world, the civilized world, absolutely said nothing. Nothing. Even now, they are forcing other people to say they must accept the manner in which they present their story, how they must all come together. This is a problem that has faced the black people and also the people in the Middle East. That issue has never been resolved. Whether you have the United Nations, it has failed to deal with these matters. It's a fact. And therefore, I don't want to say, well, a nice man has spoken there, because they all talk around their own area of satisfaction. They're not worried about anybody else. And if you argue, they force you, they kill you. We are not yet right in this globe. Not yet right in this globe. Because some people, for an example, we stay in Africa. Africa has lost a lot of its resources taken by people from Europe, and they still take them today. It's as if God said, you live in your area, but you go to Africa to take what you want. There are companies, huge companies from outside of Africa who own the resources under the earth. It doesn't belong to them.
Resources that are in Africa.
Exactly. And they never bought it. But they are taking it every day.
With Mr. Donald Trump, President-elect, the President of America, do you think his presidency will see about a shift in policies related to these ongoing wars, which includes the Hamas and Israel conflict?
I think the President of the United States of America has said something with regard to the war in Russia, right? Very clear. I haven't heard him about the country we are referring to, whether there has been a clear thing that there must be the end of battles all over. However, he is one among the few who have said something that makes sense. I think he said, we cannot use our money to fight a war in Russia when we've got it to building our country. There are not many who have said so, but he have said it. We take note of that because it is important. But as to the battles in the Middle East and the United States, I don't think I've heard very distinctly that there is somebody there who says this thing must come to an end. I haven't. Maybe I missed it.
In November last year, Ukraine launched long-range U.S. missiles into some regions in Russia. You speak of the conflict there in Russia between Russia and Ukraine. Do you see the defense then by Russia on Ukraine as justified?
Why other countries shouldn't be assisted by others who feel that this is unfair? I think it happens generally in places because whether we ask the question as you do, but there is a reality that the interests of the Western countries and the interests of the Eastern countries has never come together. Has never come together. Partly it has affected Middle East a great deal, and they are even slightly better because they can fight. Africa is worse. That's why they take everything they want from Africa. Why can't we have peace that people who live in their own, they must be allowed to live wherever they are? If they've got resources, they must sell their resources to enrich their countries. Why should be some little small countries being more powerful and everything against other people in other countries? Why is the situation of peace that we talk about and ending war that we talk about, why can't it exist? Why can't we not succeed to stop the wars and everything? Who are problematic? I think Western countries are. We are still arguing what we are arguing about here because of the Western countries. Why can't they go and sit where they are? If they want to buy something here, we sell it to them. Why should they take our stuff, have it, sell it to us, do everything? Why? Was this law made by God? No. Man-made. Why? Why can't we be allowed to live where we are in the manner in which we want? If you want to have relations with them, have relations. Why should these relations be imposed to other people?
Speaking about Mr. Donald Trump, he has recently made threats against BRICS members, or BRICS heads, I should say, and particularly South Africa, threatening them to impose tariff hikes if they continue their relations with countries like Russia and China. When you hear such threats from the West on Africa and how it conducts its business and how, like you say, deals with its resources with other countries, what do you think when you hear those threats?
That is part of the problem we have. Part of the problem we have. Why should a country threaten countries in Africa as if he's talking to the small boys? You can't do this, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Don't you see something wrong there? Why? Because a country should do what it wants to do. Whoever says so, that is a problem I have been talking about all the time. Because you have a country with its own resources and everything, which says these countries are my little ones. You can do this with somebody else, we are going to be in trouble. Why? There is totally something wrong in the manner in which big countries treat the countries that are small, the countries that are said to be probably not as big as whatever. Why should that happen? Why should a person threaten you when you take your own decision to have relations with some people? Then you must be taken into some problems. Why that? Why should that be the case? I don't think we need that. This is what we are saying as Africans. We don't need, you know, when South Africa joined BRICS, we haven't talked about those matters. It was very important because, among other things, was to deal with this very issue, that there are countries that must be like in prison. And because the West is, in a sense, dealing with these countries, and therefore there are countries that we cannot deal with. Now, it's not correct. It's not correct. BRICS brought something different to try to bring equality. Part of the reason, and I can tell you one day, not today, that there was a deliberate, why you ended up with a war in Russia, is because the Western countries were trying to put down BRICS. If you know what they did in Latin America, in Lula. He even went to prison when he had no case, a case that was established. This man he's out now because they decided to say, this little one, let us deal with. In order to also disrupt this, they changed the party in India and forced that another party must come in so that you reduce the party that was joining BRICS, that was part of BRICS. I made an experience of that. Part of the reason I was removed before finishing my term was also to deal with BRICS. They put their newspapers or media to say China was going down, the economy, blah, 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 lies, and felt that Russia must be attacked. All of that is part of BRICS' coming into being. We haven't talked about those matters a lot because that has not been the issue to talk about. But I'm just saying, you deal with Western countries who are always causing trouble, who are always making other people get into trouble when it is not supposed to be. Now, What has happened to them? Because they attacked Russia. Russia said, sorry, we've got our oil here. And whoever wants our oil is going to use the Russian money. Do you know that changed the world somehow? Because many other countries thereafter began to say, we are going to BRICS. BRICS now has more, whether full members or not yet. Only if you have a grouping like BRICS can you bring this earth into sanity.
I'm glad you spoke about BRICS because I wanted to get your views there on some of these African countries also wanting to be part of the BRICS umbrella and the notion and the probability of a BRICS currency, which some even point to a de-dollarization, which has threatened America. What do you think of that?
I think that's absolutely wonderful. BRICS is moving, and we need BRICS. We need BRICS because BRICS is not colonizing. BRICS is doing business, relationship with everybody else. And I'm happy that many countries, that some countries in Africa, Middle East, have seen what needs to be done. That is going to make this world be a world with a kind of relationship that will make people not starve in other countries, whilst in other countries they don't know what to do with the money.
The governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have accused Ukraine of arming rebels in the Sahel region in particular. Do you think that the international community is reacting to such a move or these allegations against Kiev that they are allegedly training rebels in the Sahel region?
And of course, I don't have the facts about that, but I could just make some comment about this business. You know, we in Africa, we were slaved. Serious, where human beings were sold as an article of commerce, where many people were killed in many ways, where people were bought and the person would do whatever he wants about the person, kill, whatever. There was a fight against slavery. When the slavery system was stopped, finally the whites realized it was too much. With us, they then put something with a name that is a little bit, we remember, colonization. I don't know what it means. We're colonized. From slavery to colonize, to being colonized. Colonization, what it meant? It actually meant the big countries take small countries, just take them. You are now my country. That's why we ended up with colonies, something funny. And they were going to sit with us forever. You are in English, but we are in English also in South Africa, and it's whatever around it. We then decided to start fighting for our liberation, which we did. In other countries, they did not want, like in South Africa, they didn't. They thought they were here to stay, blah, blah, blah. Where that ended to? Ended in a situation where we went to ask the Western countries to help us fight our oppressors here. They actually said it to us, to the ANC in particular. We are not going to train you to go back and kill our cousins and our people, whites. And therefore, sorry. That's what led to us going to the socialist countries who were ready to help us. And it was the help from the socialist countries that made us to be at least recognized that we could have guns and shoot. and defeat, and we liberated ourselves. In some cases, when they realized this is what we're doing, you know what they did? No, we can't govern. We don't know how to govern. So we're going to give you what we call self-government to test you whether you can run a country. And by then, they were entrenching their own methods of keeping us under them. Like as we were asking the question at the beginning about the French. In fact, French went further, as I said, because they kept the money there, everything, because they think we are not sufficient human beings. I'm saying this because we face a very one-sided world. Those who are white in color have everything. Those who are not white, they must suffer. That is the problem we are faced with. That's a problem. And therefore you hear big people here talking about telling you every other thing, as if they molded us to become what we are, and therefore we belong to them. It's not true. We need to fight forever, liberate ourselves. Our own wealth is enriching countries out there, whilst we are being starved where it is dug from. It's not an innocent thing that when we all are human beings, you happen to be at a corner where you have everything, you must then be a target. I believe if you talk about these countries in Africa saying, or even in the Middle East, we now want to join BRICS, I think people are becoming aware that we can, in fact, equal the world. And we can only do so if we are able to see the truth to what is being done. We can't be made like almost semi-human beings when others are full human beings. I think that time has passed. And if you talk about BRICS, fortunately I was part of BRICS from the beginning. And I'm very clear what needs to happen, what BRICS needs to do. When BRICS becomes bigger, you might in fact have to change even the United Nations, because it is also one-sided. You have got a big organization with 5 people with the powers that we've never seen before. What do they call them, by the way? You remember? There are 5 countries. They are called very special. They take, exactly, they take final decisions over the whole world that we have. If they say no, is no. They are almost more than God.
Calling the shots.
At least God does not tell us. He made the laws a long time ago and finished. Them, if they said no, they call it what?
A permanent decision?
Is it permanent decision? Maybe. But what I'm saying, you have in this world people who are a majority from the West who are dominating that top 5. Some things had to be put right, because it means these are more than us, are more than angels, are God. Because as we are all here, that thing needed to have been revived by now. What else can be done so that we stop this thing that is happening in the Middle East when there is a law that is real law? Not the law that says these ones are inferior. I don't care what happens. I can kill the child, can kill everything. If that thing happens somewhere else, the whole world comes there. We are living in a world which is lopsided. It cannot be allowed. We are all human beings. There's nobody who has more eyes and more noses and more mouths. We are the same. Why can't we have the same respect to all of us? And therefore, in my view, BRICS is an important element to change the world.
Am I correct to say you recently visited Russia? Are you planning to meet the president of Russia, talking about BRICS countries in this case?
I recently visited. I went for medical checkup when I was in Moscow or in Russia. It was a medical. And if I'm there, if I have a friend there, why can't I meet my friend if it is possible? I've got, in fact, a lot of friends in Russia.
President Putin?
As well as in the United States, as well as in Great Britain. I would have gone there also for medical work, but I chose to go to Russia.
Did you meet President Putin when you were there in Russia?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Do you think there was political interference for you not to meet him?
No, we're not wanting to meet then. I had gone there for medical checkup. I'm sure if I had wanted to see my friend, I would have seen my friend.
I want to go back to the issue of Palestine because it's an issue that the ANC that you claim to have been part of from a young age is an ANC that has strongly supported Palestine. Now, when you look at the recent developments now in relation to the ceasefire agreement, do you think it's going to last? Given the fact that obviously South Africa has been a supporter of Gaza, do you think that this particular ceasefire agreement will hold?
I hope it should hold. But for me, it's a one-sided one, the manner in which it has been done. Not like the first or the last. Many times it has happened in the Middle East. Middle East things are always very complex and difficult. If we were to have equal understanding of how we should live among one another, there wouldn't be wars like that in what you call. What causes wars? There are reasons as well. Part of the reason Africa is suppressed up to now is because of its wealth it has. And I'm sure in the Middle East, maybe they also have something. Are you sure they do? Don't you know?
Are you suggesting?
They've got oil,
Yeah.
a lot of oil there. And that's why there are issues. The issues are provoked by the fact that others want to take from others what belongs to them. And they utilize their power to do so. It is unfortunate. Some of the agreements that are there are forced, like the one that now we're talking about, that we've got to have the ceasefire, is forced in reality. If you were to be honest and tell the truth, it's forced.
The Israeli Prime Minister says that his country is ready to get back into it and resume its attack on Hamas, should the second phase of the ceasefire agreement collapse. Do you think this will actually take place?
Why is the world keeping quiet when one country threatens another country like this? When we have your United Nations, we have got everything. Why? Because no matter how much we discuss the issue, if there is no equality, the small ones will always suffer. So it's a matter that at times we feel we don't want to say even anything because the world is not honest to itself.
What do you think South Africa should do then in that case if they resume what South Africa has deemed genocide in Gaza?
Well, at the moment, I'm not in power. I don't know what the ones who are in power will do.
What would you do?
If I was in charge, I would have, in fact, even by now, as they are discussing, I would have gone there to discuss the matter very seriously. Why there is inequality? I mean, people have been put, their places flattened, people died, everything. You still demand such much thing to say this is what we want. I mean, there is what you call it negotiations. It's just negotiations. You know exactly those who are powerful are the ones who win, who even say, if this is not done, I attack. I've got the right to attack. Why should some people have that such right when others don't even have the smallest right? You see, the world is not unit,
not equal.
Together, not equal. That's a problem.
The president of South Africa led an African delegation to Russia and Ukraine to try and put forward some resolutions to that long-going conflict there. Do you think that African countries, when they get into these discussion tables, do you think they are taken seriously? I mean, right now you speak about how you would go there if you were in power. Do you think African countries are taken seriously when they come about with some solutions for these conflicts?
Well, I don't know whether I need to talk about that kind of thing, because what I've said is a broader behavior of the world. It's not correct. It's not. Then, because they're big countries, blah, blah, blah. Then we have African continent, which is taken as being owned by countries from outside of Africa, which has leaders, some of which so weak that I wouldn't want to say anything. Even if they go, it's just a visit. Because we are talking about people I haven't heard really dealing with the serious issues of the continent or the world. If people are still avoiding discussing the truth about what needs to be done, and then go there just to go, because I believe that if there was an issue, we wanted to go there, we must go there honestly, and we must be able to say the wrong is wrong.
Do you think that African countries are taken seriously when it comes to their input in resolutions for conflicts?
I think to some degree, at times they are. Again, it will depend what are the conflicts. Well, there are conflicts that big countries believe it is only them who must say something. Other people, yes, unless they are under pressure. So some are taken, but not the majority of them. And it's a pity, because, as I believe, Africa is an important continent which must still jump higher to reach its real position. Because Africa has many, many things that other countries outside of Africa need. That's the reason why they were able to risk the seas to come to Africa, because they got to know that Africa has everything. But it was precisely because of that Africans were put into a place where they should not be taken very serious. Because if you have been colonized and you are still indirectly colonized, you are still a weaker factor. So that goes together with your input that you make. Is it taken serious? Because if they feel, for an example, no, we don't want this, they will do so. If they want to come and attack you, they will kill and attack you. I'm sure, just to make it more clearer what I'm saying, Gaddafi was killed because his country was beginning to say Africa must stand on its own and live in its own life. And for that, because he was talking like that, he had to be killed by the civilized Christian kind of people when he had committed no crime, except to talk about Africa, our country.
Do you think Africa has what it takes to be independent then? You spoke about slavery, colonization, and still being indirectly colonized through the systems and what is actually happening in the African continent. Do you think Africa can stand on its own and stand up against big bullies, as some have put it, against countries like America that can make threats, against countries like Europe that have come in to use some of our resources?
As I said, it depends what type of an issue or of a situation we're talking about.
Economically.
Whether economically or otherwise. Once the Western countries feel these ones now are becoming too big for their size, they will come in. And they've done so in Africa, came in on a number of times. Just before Gaddafi was killed, I was the last president who went to his country. I went there to talk to him when NATO was bombarding that country. In fact, I was given instructions as the president of this country that you fly this way, you lower your tripper, and people come from Europe, tell us in Africa, and we are in charge. That tells you the story of this continent. At the end, he was killed because he was very clear about Africa. And the Western countries did not want it, and they killed him. That's a reality we have.
You were recently in Ghana, and there are many developments that are happening in the African continent. Look at what's happening in Mozambique, for example. You speak of Gaddafi, who you say was killed because of his view about Africa and wanting it to stand on its own. With your political experience, Mr. Zuma, and given the fact that you now have this MK party, which is the third biggest political party in South Africa, do you think Africa would be able to come together and stand together? We've seen what is happening in the Sahel region, for example.
Yes, I think Africa, at this time, we've reached a point that we can, in fact, come together. We can, in fact, put Africa into our hands and develop it. The obstacle is the big countries, former colonizers in particular.
The West.
The West. Who would want to keep Africa down so that they are able to benefit from Africa, to control Africa? What is left is that Africa should come together. And it's better to have a country, Africa, under our control, with our resources in our hands. You cannot, if you look at the history of Africa, try to argue that Africa is good, blah, 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 when you have countries that are still calling themselves mother body countries. It's a difficult thing. I think Africa has reached the point. As you said, I was in Ghana. I think the discussion that we had with the leadership in Ghana is a kind of a discussion that has not happened in the past. The manner in which we see Africa, how we want Africa to be under its control, how Africa must benefit from the riches of the continent. I think the debate is changing, and it is a matter of time that Africa, one of these days, is going to be different. Let me just make the point here. When the former colonizing countries were faced with the issue of how to control Africa, they then concocted what was called coup d'etats, wherein they will plan, once in their countries, how to remove the leaders in Africa so that they put their own puppets. It took a long time. As a result, what is called a coup d'etat was hated, because how do you take such good leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, and there are many others? But it was initiated by the colonizers. They will buy people so that people are able to kill their brothers for their own interests. You know what has happened now? There are few coup d'etats that have just happened. As a result of that kind of coup d'etats that happened, people today don't see the difference between those coup d'etats and these ones. But the coup d'etats that have taken place now are saying to France, enough is enough. Take your
Troops.
Your troops, our money must be here. If we were not misled, we would not be saying we cannot take these people as ours because it's a coup d'etat. It's just a name. They don't understand. These young people are saying enough is enough. That tells you where Africa is going. We are saying let that belongs to Africa to come and remain in Africa. And it's correct. What has been done is absolutely correct. Why should the French forces be sitting in Africa? Why should the money be brought from France to feed us when we have got our own? That tells you that the car is turning the corner. It is a reality. It is there. I have a clear understanding of what is happening. The coups of today are not like the coups which were defeating the ends of Africa processed by Europeans. It's a coup d'etat of the Africans defending themselves, taking themselves out of the kind of what these colonies have done to us. But some of us, even in Africa, we don't see it. We still want to put them away. They're doing the wrong thing, blah, blah, blah. No. They are actually taking the struggle to liberate Africa again. And me, I support it, I can tell you. Unless it is a kind of a coup d'etat like the ones before. These ones are saying, let Africa look after itself. Simple.
You've enticed me there with your visit to Ghana, saying that there were discussions that are moving towards this idea of Africa strengthening itself. Do you want to give us a little bit of those discussions and the future plans?
No, I'm just talking about the discussions in general. I don't think I'm talking about the details. I'm talking about that we as Africans, we are now saying time has come for us to rule our countries. Time has come for us to have our resources looking after the African people, belonging to them. Who want to buy gold here and silver and everything must buy, must not take our resources here and go and do it and come and sell it for us. That's what we are saying. There must be real understanding and equality and everything you can talk about. That's what we are talking about. That's why I'm saying Africa is turning a corner.
Mutual beneficial relations.
Absolutely.
Now, let's move on to media and censorship. RT, the platform we are on now, is celebrating 20 years in December, and it seems to be growing audiences in the global south. What do you think of RT's existence in the space of countering Western media or Western news that is being spread all over because people don't have access to RT? I want to get a view from you as to what you think about what RT is doing in giving the Global South a voice and countering Western media.
I think the question of communication has been mastered by the Western countries many, many, many years ago. And many good things have been put aside by the media, always. I think Africa has, in fact, do more quicker to stand on our own, to tell our own stories, to tell the stories of those we think they are not doing the right thing. The problem is that the domination of the Western world media has been there for centuries. Many people think it is like things that were made by God or 10 Commandments, when it is not. I think our time has come that we should stand on our own, tell our own stories, not fear to tell the truth. That gold, that resources come from our country. They belong to us. We are afraid to say so. Our media is afraid because they think this belongs to them. Who gave them? Were they given by God or took it by force, whatever? Now, if, in my view, we have not reached that point to tell the truth as it is, yes, it may be fine that we are beginning to do something, but man, I want us to tell the truth as it is.
Do you think censorship against RT is justified?
Well, I'm not sure about that because I don't think, why should people be stopped from saying what they're saying when others can say anything they want? Unjustified. Why stop other people who want their own things to come beforehand? Why think that Africans, for an example, they can't tell stories? Only big countries up there will tell the story. That's not fair. That's part of what has been saying since we discussed, that there is a lopsided kind of everything. Even at times, by the way, even Christians, at times, they say different things. But they're Christians. They're supposed to be holy, holy, no so. So my view is that let us equal the things. Let us equal the things. Whether you take Middle East or whatever, there is always lopsided behavior in what should be done in this world. Why should some other people have everything others don't have? If they don't have by saying you can't take it, they just reduce or increase the cost so that you have nothing, no money, you can't reach there. I think it's not right. It's not right.
As I let you go, Mr. Zuma, recently President Trump held a briefing where he engaged members of the media, and we heard him saying how he feels that the negotiations where Mr. Biden was involved in relation to NATO and Russia, he messed them up. That's what he said. Mr. Trump said Biden messed the negotiations up insofar as Ukraine joining NATO. And he says he would have handled it differently. You know, Russia, you've been a politician for a number of years. Russia has relations with South Africa. When you hear Mr. Donald Trump saying things like that, do you agree that the decision by America to back Ukraine in the way that it did when it comes to NATO was correct?
What was correct? I didn't hear the end.
Mr. Trump has accused Biden of mishandling the negotiations insofar as Ukraine and NATO.
Mm-hmm, I hear you. No.
Do you agree with that?
Me? just hang on. Do you know that the man I talked about not a long time ago, Gaddafi was done by people coming from abroad, from the Western countries. Agreed? Why they would go so long to Africa to kill somebody and think that it is correct to do so? And whoever was arguing about the war, why would people from the United States, for that matter, start a war in Russia to a country that is former Russia, which tells you it's not just a neighbor. These countries were once together. And wanted to send heavy weapons there to kill the Russians. And Biden, or whatever, is sitting there, is encouraging that, is allowing his son and himself to start businesses there, which were also to help increase the military attack of Russia. I'm not sure I can say such a man was right. It was totally out of order. Because we always say we want peace. Say UN is for peace, blah, blah, blah. But this peace is one-sided. It's not a peace that is honest, clear. And therefore, I think what I've said so far from Trump, that he cannot waste his money in Russia because they've got a country to develop. Absolutely correct. I think so.
It would be remiss of me, I've asked you a plethora of questions, different questions, His Excellency. It would be remiss of me not to say, as we wrap it up, is there anything that you would like to say based on this type of discussion that we have?
I think we've discussed sufficiently what I thought. I mean, I did not say much because you stopped me at some point and I said, fine, we discuss other things. I think we've discussed quite a lot of things. I could say more. If you want me to talk, I can talk until tomorrow morning.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. We know you are a very busy man with the MK party new in South Africa, shaking up the political landscape. We really do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us on RT.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was a mouthful as we wait with bated breath the book that Mr. Zuma says he's putting together to once again add all his political views.
We'll put together.
Which he'll put together as a certain thing. So we'll leave it here for now. My name is H.E for RT News in South Africa.